Hello, 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 beautiful souls. Welcome back to another episode of Sistahs with a Purpose. I'm your girl, Leash.
And I'm Bree.
And our purpose is to give you a little bit of sports, always some health from Bree. And today we are sitting with a guest, Carla Davis. Welcome, Carla.
Hello.
It sounds so weird saying Carla Davis because I've always, with coaches and everybody that's been, when I knew them as a kid, and then I come into an adult, I always say like Miss. So I'm going to always call you Miss Carla. That sounds so weird because I coached your son. So I'm
yeah. Well, he still refers to you as Coach Leisha. He was like, I'm coming to see Coach Leisha. Like, okay.
I've worn so many names. It's crazy. But we're going to sit down with Miss Carla. She is a sports psychiatrist. Psychologist.
Yes.
Sports psychologist. My bad. I would consider her my mentor. She's pursued me to go and get my master's in sports psychology. Yay. I start in February. It sounds good now because we're in January. Next episode, we will talk about it. They sent the syllabus already, and I said, what did I get myself into? I haven't seen a syllabus in 10 years since I graduated college.
Fine.
You will.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It goes by so fast.
Yeah.
And I get to be your cheerleader this year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. And then the topics and stuff that you're going to cover and the subjects that you're going to learn, and then you get to apply it to, people in your life, and you have a lot of athletes in your life.
Right.
It's going to fly by.
Okay.
Well, you will learn a lot.
Look, all right, we'll have to do a flashback to this episode. But Miss Carla, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you. Born and raised, what made you get into becoming focusing on sports psychology?
Okay. Well, I am Dr. Carla Davis.
Say it one more time.
Dr. Carla Davis.
Good.
And for your information, this just happened in my 40s, as a matter of fact. So it took a long time to get to this point, but definitely persistence. We moved out here from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, sports reasons, my sons. I have two sons, both that play college sports. One just graduated in December, and then my daughter, who is a sophomore in high school. She plays basketball, and she does swimming.
Ooh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, that's a whole other interesting venture for her, especially. But I guess you could say because of the boys' sports, and Aeneas started playing when he was 3 to 4, and being a single mom before I met my daughter's father, it was just me with the boys. So I was kind of the mom and the dad, and I've always been the one to really just involve myself very heavily in the activities that they did. I learned a lot about sports. I guess I've always been a big sports fan too, because my dad was like, "You should have been a boy." Yeah, I was very tomboyish. 49ers have always been my team. Love football, love basketball. So I knew a lot, especially boxing. I love boxing too. I knew a lot about sports. My childhood friends were boys. So that was always just a passion of mine. And then when I had my own sons, I'm like, yes. My daughter, that's a whole other case. But definitely it has to do with them and things, that I've seen them go through and their friends. So we were always the go-to house where all the kids would come over, after games, or where all the kids would hang out. So I learned a lot about athletes, a lot about kids, and it just drove my passion even more into doing something with sports. I just didn't know what I was going to do. Right. So when I went back to school, I was working for a sports agent, and I can't disclose who I worked with, but it was a football player that at that time he just found out, he was just diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Okay. And so he was going through a lot of things, both him and his family. And so that really piqued my interest. These guys really need help. There has to be more to this. So I have a degree in social psychology, and then one in sports medicine health.
Okay.
But I definitely wanted to do something working one-on-one, because that is my passion. And for some reason, I am just a natural, like people just come to me and tell me their problems. Grocery stores, or, when I'm sitting in the stands, I'm learning things about people. Sometimes it's too much information, but they just feel, very comfortable. So I've been told that. And I'm just like, you know what? I need to do this. So I started looking into different fields and sports psychology. And I started looking at women, like women in the industry. And it really just piqued my interest. So I decided that I was going to go ahead and pursue that. And it took me like 6 years overall between masters and doctorates. But I finished and I did it. And along the way with experiences and internships, like I did an intern with U of H. And then at Antonian at the school, I got to come in and set up a whole evaluation program. So basically what I do, it's not just mentoring, counseling, or assist with like injury recovery. It's a broad range of things. In your field, you'll be able to go in and set up curriculums. You can do evaluations over programs to help discover like what needs to be corrected in different programs. So you write up like these reports and they pay you very good money for this. So you don't just have to be one-on-one with athletes all the time. On the flip side, I do deal with mental health with athletes. One of my particular focuses is on athletes with ADHD.
Okay.
Because I have a son that has ADHD. So they just have a different way of processing and programming. And I also deal with athletes that struggle to learn plays because they can't remember, they can't focus. So you see them jumping from team to team, transferring because there's a disconnect between the coaches and the players. And in retrospect, I also work with the coaches to learn how to understand their different players, like diversity, not just with race or ethnicity, but diversity with mental health. Because you have anxiety, you have ADHD. Now that autism is really coming out,
I have an autistic son. But my son played football, and we had an issue with plays because Cameron is dyslexic. So we had to teach him a total different way. Like, it was more hands-on. We couldn't do just the playbook. We had to do the whole setup in the backyard, and it was a lot.
But But you'd be surprised. Some parents wouldn't recognize that.
And you see that often. So like when you get to know it, like, okay, my son just keeps transferring. The coaches, they're always fighting with him, and he has an attitude. Well, let's see what's going on. So, I really dig deeper into that, and I look at academics. How are your academics? Are you barely getting by? Are they just passing you through? And then that'll tell me a whole lot about a person, is how they're doing in their classes. Even at an adult level, how do you function in your life? Is your budget chaotic? You can tell a whole lot by how people live. And so, okay, there's an underlining issue there. Let's figure out what's going on. And then with these coaches too, like, kids talented, very talented, but you're going to have to communicate differently, or you're going to have an assistant coach know how this player communicates, both male and female. And once, you kind of mend that connection, they thrive. They thrive and do well, because sports is an outlet. It's a mental outlet, physical outlet. It teaches you discipline, direction. So it's really important to really understand like what and who you're dealing with, on all levels. So that's something that, you're going to be doing soon too.
I'm excited. Yeah. When you were telling me about the program, I was like, this is something I've always wanted to do. I just didn't know what it was called.
Right. Because it's not, you have like your certified mental performance coaches and things like that, and they're kind of on the level that we are. They just can't do as much with mental health as a sports psychologist. Again, we can't write prescriptions. That's the psychiatry part. But there's a lot more that we can do than just the performance coaching. But yeah, it's a definite need. There is a definite need. And there's
Yeah,
not
I think
enough.
it almost should be mandatory. Like these, we talk about it all the time on the show. Like mental health is so important, but these players come from different dynamics. It can be used as an outlet because abuse at home. It can be used as an outlet as a numerous number of things. And we get coaches, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I do want to ask the question, do you notice a difference with coaches based off of generations? Do you feel like more so we have the older coaches we're used to, that it was look, I'm going to tell you what to do, get it done. Don't kind of go against the grain or ask me any questions on it, versus the new coming athletes are more in tune with mental health. So do you see a big difference, and is there really a bridge and gap that's coming along?
There's definitely a bridge and gap. I just evaluated a program, and these coaches were in their 60s. And so their style of coaching was cuss at the kid, you know, break them down. And a lot of these kids you cannot talk to that way anymore. They don't respond to that. And they felt like, you know, with these newer generations, of course, they're softer, is what I get a lot of feedback. And the fact that the coaches feel that these players are using these mental health outlets as excuses, you know, but that's not the case. Like, you came from a time that you probably whooped your children, and now you really can't do that, you know? So there is a very big disconnect with that. And even coming in and trying to work with these coaches, it's hard, because they're looking at you like, okay, for one, you're a woman. So what are you going to tell me about how to do my job? Well, it's not really telling you how to do your job. It's teaching you how to communicate with your players, so you have more effective communication and you have progress and success. You know, but these younger coaches, they are more open to that, given that social media, technology, the internet, there's so many stories that we have access to. And these coaches are seeing these stories, sports related, with mental health. And so they're taking all of that into, you know, factor when like dealing with their athletes. Again, it does get frustrating, especially when you have the athletes that have a disorder like anxiety or depression. Coaches do get frustrated. They don't want to deal with that, because, I mean, they have a difficult job.
Yeah.
You know, a head coach is not just out there coaching on the sidelines. Like, there's millions of things they have to do behind the scenes.
Right.
But what I did notice is that these programs, both with NCAA and some of your high schools that are well funded, I'll just put it like that, they're hiring sports psychologists. They're hiring, I like to have on staff, a lot of the pro teams. They've really brought a lot of those programs in, and they're hiring sports psychologists to assist with that, because coaches, they're not trained to deal with that. So,
it can be missed, you know. Yeah.
No, but like you said, that's why even I've been brought on as assistant coaches with men all the time, but I tell them, like, your head coach, there's a lot they don't see. That's why when you go from high school to the college level, there are so many people on staff. And then some of their titles don't even make sense. You're like, you do what?
Yeah.
Well, basically, when you need to vent, you come into my office and close the door. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know what that was called, but you know, why didn't I have this in high school? But no, you're totally right. You see it more when it's more money.
You'll see that in these programs that are bringing these psychologists and these counselors in to deal with those type of athletes, or athletes that are having issues, which it's not fair to programs that don't, because I feel like those are the ones that probably need the most help. And even if you can't bring in like a psychologist or somebody to run a program like that to have on hand, I think mentors are great, especially athletes, you know, who have been in the same kind of
Situation.
situations.
Yep.
To bring those in. And you can, do volunteer basis in universities if you have local universities. Like there's so much to set
Yeah.
up to do that. But I think it is needed. It is needed because just like we were talking about earlier, it does play a big mental factor on these kids and their performances. And you have some very talented individuals that if you could just show them a different light and help keep them on track, it's amazing what they can do,
Yeah.
you know?
What would you say is the like common thing you see when you're evaluating, I guess you can say high schoolers versus adults?
High schoolers, the most common thing I see is probably stress and anxiety. I see a lot of that.
In high school, anxiety?
In high school. And it affects their performance, but it's more anxiety about the pressures of I got to get a college scholarship. We have to win this, or you're coming in with these expectations like you have a school that wins, state titles all the time, and so your expectations or the expectations of this athlete are up here. And it is very stressful because not only do you have to be a student, are you learning how to navigate into an adult world? Now you have the pressure of sports, and then depending on what kind of coaches they're having to deal with, the parents are probably the worst pressure when it comes to these high school athletes because of their expectations. And then they're dealing with the stress of, oh, my kid didn't get enough playing time, or you made a switch. And, so then the coaches take this out on the players, with the disagreements that they have with the parents. So that creates a lot of anxiety for high school kids. It's just the pressures of what you have to do now and what you're expected to do when you're finished. And then, if your family can't afford college, and
This is your only avenue
Yeah.
of us paying for it. That's a lot.
yeah, it is. So I see that a lot. I see a lot of unnecessary overtraining. Do you know what I'm talking about?
We see it all the time. The kids collapsing or non-treated, or
I think I've seen a 5-year-old doing football drills.
yeah, it's bad.
Yeah.
I can't disclose the team, but our son played, and we were in the middle of playoffs. We were going against a particular school that we discussed earlier, and we noticeably could tell this child was hurt.
And was still out there.
And they were still pushing him to play. They would not pull him out. And dad was one of those, like, muscle through it. We're in a point, we got to get it done. And like you said, it plays a psychological thing for these children on top of physical, because now what do you tell you? And Cameron is only 12. So now what do you think at the time when he was playing, he was 11, telling his child, by the time he's 16, in his mind has been programmed, I have to muscle through this and I have to play.
Yeah.
Promoting even a worse injury or a more mental breakdown if he is pulled, that I didn't do a good job because I didn't muscle through playing. It's almost militant if you think about it, being in the military all over again. I'm getting flashbacks. Yeah, that sounds familiar, but
it is, and it can be. And that, overuse in training, so you set them up for failure, for one. There is I read a study not too long ago, because I have seen on, Instagram, and I'm looking at things, and you have these 6-year-olds that are weight training. And really, you should not weight train a child. You should start, maybe around age 12, 11 to 12.
I did not know that.
With light weights to learn the dynamics and the biomechanics of weight training. But anything earlier than that, you're affecting their muscle growth, their joints, their back. I've seen kids that are 15, 16 that have the backs of 70-year-old people. From starting weight training too early.
Too early.
Mm-hmm. So definitely overtraining is a big factor, because then these kids get injured and their injuries are pretty bad. Sometimes it's over sports wise. So, now this kid is like, okay, an opportunity that I should have just got cut off, and I'm only 16, 17 years old. That's one of the major things. And then really just performance anxiety, but that comes from the pressure, again, from parents, from coaches. So I see a lot of that. Adults, it's more, you do have some overtraining. I think the biggest thing I see with adults is injury recovery and having to rebuild that confidence, and learn to trust your body again. So that deals with like a lot of like cognitive, mindfulness, kind of staying in the moment. And then pressures for a lot of these like college kids, to make it pro. That's a big thing. Or they're put in situations, especially now with all this NIL money.
Yeah, I was just about to talk about that.
They're coming from environments with nothing to all of a sudden they have, $75,000 in their bank account. So it's a lot of stress, because now you have people coming out the woodworks and, I'm your friend, I'm your family, you owe me.
Talked about that.
Yeah. And these guys are just like,
some form of financial training. I've always been like, it needs to start in college. It should be a mandatory class that these kids have to take. There should be assets that, I don't care if we wrap it up in a trust and they only get a certain percentage of it. No college athlete needs that amount of access to that amount of money.
And I do recall they did offer it, but like you said, it was optional. It was kind of, because study hall is optional, but it's required at the same time.
Right.
And they would just hold it during that time. Like, oh, you leave in study hall, drop by, room 202. They're having a financial class in there. No, I think I'm agreeing with you. It should be mandatory. If you're a student athlete, it should be a part of the curriculum. Just add it in there. Your freshman year, you have to take this, because now they just giving out.
They're giving out money, and it breeds a product. We didn't have financial literacy at that age. Let's just be honest. It was a trial and error. I think, now coming along with kids, they have access to more stuff, and we're more self-aware. And then it also goes back to what your upbringing was. You don't know what you don't know. My parents lived a certain particular kind of way. Credit was not my parents. And I think a certain generation was access to money, not credit.
Yeah.
So I had to self-teach credit will get you more access to money. You got to flip it. But they don't know what they don't know. And you give somebody who is coming from a different environment, $75,000, instantly it's not going to go into the favor of the best interest. It's going to get misused in a lot of different places. I know you don't like me bringing her up, but Angel Reese is a prime example for when she did that little video podcast, and she could not even tell you how much her rent was, how much her car note was. That is the fastest way for somebody to come in and misuse your funds, and you don't know. Every penny should be accounted for.
Oh, the WNBA don't pay my bills at all. I don't even think that pays one of my bills. Literally. I'm trying to think of like my rent for where I stay at. Let me do the math real quick.
It might cover that. Yeah, it covers that. It definitely covers that.
What is I don't even know my salary.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's the difference between, we were talking about it on the last episode with Travis Hunter versus someone like Angel Reese. Travis has a good mentor
Wonderful
on
mentors.
his hands.
Yes. Yes.
If
you could just duplicate his mentors and just put them out, amazing.
I think and I was telling my husband this the other day. I said, I think anybody who went to the University of Colorado that played under Dion, all you got to do is put that on your resume.
Right.
Oh yeah, you said that on the
That's the cheat code to get your resume pulled.
But like you were saying, and I think it goes back to, and I would love to ask you that question too, is how do you set the expectation to some of these athletes when you are talking to them that, honey, you might not make it pro, And having coaches that put in place and letting the athletes know, you may not make it pro, but I need to set you up this way for life. Some of them are so locked into that, they can't let it go.
No, they can't. And they don't. And that's where they get in trouble. They start to drink, smoke, do things. I had a guy from the University of Houston. So they assigned him to me because, of course, he wasn't going pro, not G League, overseas, anything. Like when he graduated, that was it for basketball. And that was coming up. So his addiction was not smoking or drinking. His addiction was bad behavior. And with that bad behavior, it was like, I don't know how.
You can,
okay.
fine.
Everybody comes on and says. We might need to just put the disclaimer at the
his addiction was sex. And the reason that they called me is because this kid he got tested and tested positive for chlamydia, gonorrhea, and herpes. And I think they said he had he was diagnosed 8 times, tested positive in a matter of 4 months. So it's like he took an antibiotic and went right back out there and...
Well, now he's a risk to society.
Right. That behavior was horrible.
Yeah.
But his whole thing was, that's where, when we really started to break things down, it was about, he didn't know what was going to happen after. He had no plan. Wow. So when it came to that, not only was it talking about his behavior and, trying to get him to do things differently, it was, okay, let's make a plan for your life. So you're going to be a life coach as well, and you'll see that. Let's see, what do you enjoy doing? What is your degree in? And, what kind of resources do you have? And then when somebody really just sits down with them and shows them, it kind of changes their perspective. Like, I know you wanted to go pro. This has been your dream since you were little, but it's not going to happen. And I think the best way is to be direct, but have that support when you tell them, chances are this is not going to happen if they don't already realize that. Because that support can help create other opportunities. Like, you can't do this, but let's see what you're working with. Like, you're great at this. What about coaching? What about, being a trainer? What about, so then they have another focus, to work towards. But you're right. I've seen a lot of cases where these kids are just done. And then they're like, okay, what now? So then they start getting into trouble. But I think those things need to be, if it's by your, I think, sophomore, junior year, unless you suffer a pretty big injury, I think you pretty much know where your sports career is headed.
But I guess that's why I would say, as a former athlete, I was never, I'll say this, have to be blunt. As a former athlete, and even some of my teammates to this day, we do kind of hate that these kids are getting this NIL money. But on a flip side, I see it as a positive, because at least you giving that university all you have, when you're done, you got a little change. Like, you got a little bit. You don't got, because when we're, like you said, Miss Carla, when we're done, like, that's it. If you get, what was it, Pell, like we used to get Pell Grant. So, like, when you got Pell Grant, that was your last one. You wasn't getting it anymore.
Right, yeah.
Once you cross that stage, that's it. And if you don't live on campus, you have to make sure, is my lease paid up? What are you doing after college? All of that stuff does play a factor. And if you don't have good family support, it does affect you.
Or some kind of mentor or, guidance. And they say they have career counselors and, but
you gotta know where the office is at.
Right. If you've ever just sat and talked to one, it's
like,
just kind of looking at overall pictures and NCAA programs, they're more like you're a number. And it's, okay, you have a degree in this, and these are, some possible jobs or whatever. I don't know. I've just never really found career counseling to be effective, because, now they make you do these personality tests to see what jobs interest you or
computer
whatever. But
generated,
yeah, but
And then too, if we're being honest, as your academic advisor when you're a student athlete, there's like a list of degrees you can choose from. They don't
they try to give you a less strenuous
schedule.
schedule.
But like you said, by your sophomore year, if you know like I ain't trying to do this the rest of my life, then you try to go back to your academic advisor and tell them that, well, when you need to take biology, it's during your practice time, or when you need to take this course, they only offer it, but y'all have games, you can't miss it. So it's tough.
it
It's
is.
tough.
Do you notice a difference between what you see with your female and your males? Some of the issues that they come with. Is there anything that's more prominent, or are they about the same?
It's about the same. I think the pressure on the guys is a little more because, I mean, how many people tune into like a volleyball game, a collegiate volleyball game, as opposed to a men's basketball game or the men's football games? So I think their pressure is a little bit more, but I think female, to me, a lot of their issues are, again, just life issues other than injury, recovery, things like that. But it's really just trying to navigate through the adult world. And this is what's paying for school. And again, what am I going to do after? And sometimes the pressure from relationships, both with males and females, with these women and stuff. Because I guess, what I'm gathering is I did college from home. Like, I didn't live in a dorm. I didn't get to experience all of that. So really getting to see Zion and Aeneas's experience is kind of crazy with the stuff that they do. And these kids, they have females spend the night and it's like a whole community.
Mini apartment,
a community of its own. And so
Unchaperoned.
oh yeah. So a lot of times, a lot of females are discovering who they are. Female athletes, they're discovering who they are, and they get to be who they are and who they want to be. Not, so I see that a lot too, because when the family comes around, it's somebody different. They have to hide their identity sometimes and just be this college athlete that's doing great. Especially those that aren't, as close to their family. So I see some of those problems sometimes. And then again, like relationship problems. Because now they're on their own and they're trying to figure life out. I do see, as of recent, I've had a couple of like pregnancy where there's slip-ups, and now these girls are pregnant, and now their sports career is over. They can't afford school, and sadly, like a lot of these programs just, you're out and bring in the next one. So it's, it's a lot of pressure. Like, do I keep my baby? Do I not keep my baby? If I, don't keep my baby, I get to keep playing sports, but where's your mind at?
Yeah.
So
It's a tough one.
Yeah. And a lot of them decide not to go through with it.
Really?
They don't keep, no. Mm-mm. And so then you have this guilt and you have all these emotions that you have to deal with on top of still trying to play sports.
It's a real thing. I went to UT, and I, at the time, had a girlfriend she was a cheerleader and had a boyfriend that at the time played for Texas A&M, very good player. By the time her freshman year in college, she had already had 2 abortions. It was, I can't stop his career. I can't stop mine. But the guilt. And I could say to this day, I'm 34. We're the same age. She has no children. And I'm sure.
That's probably, yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yep. Or the whole Plan B thing. And I tried to, even my high school girls, like, Plan B is not a method of birth control. Because I have a lot of girls, especially at this one high school, I can't disclose it, but they will tell me that they're having issues, like they're having some anxiety, and so I come in and it's not that at all. They're pregnancy scares, but they're too afraid to talk to their parents because their parents are very, sports, like, it's this route or no route.
Right.
So they're too afraid to come to their parents to talk to them about birth control. So they do things and then they're just like, okay, like, what do we do? Like, plan B, or, and so I'm preaching that plan B is not a method of birth control.
Wow.
It's if you have an accident. I met a girl 2 months ago that she told me that she had taken like 8 or 9 plan B pills, like over the past 4 or 5 months. And I'm like, girl, like, you guys have to understand, women, it's a whole different system with your hormones and your cycles, so I'm there giving, her the birds and the bees talk. Like,
Wow.
we can't do this. But, plan B being so accessible, I mean, it's a good thing.
It is, but I'm just like, at what point did you,
In high school?
Yeah.
You know me.
so
I'm
just condom was just not an option.
Yeah.
At all, but you don't know what you don't know. So go into that, because it seems like you have a whole access of stuff that you get. What would you say is your approach that is effective, that you've learned over the years? It works, and you teach it when you get these cases in. Like, how do you approach them?
Like with the females and the
Just like overall, like, I guess, what is the setup for this? Like, we sit them down one-on-one, we go through options, we do resource here. Like, do you have a certain plan that you kind of stick by?
So I'm real big on, we first do initially a consultation, and that's when I ask a bunch of questions, and then I kind of get their feedback on what the situation is, how they view the situation. And then I kind of go in and do my research. So depending if it's an injury, depending if it's something with mental health, whatever on, my client. And then we come in together, and our next session is going to be, let's create a plan. Okay. Let's create a plan of where you are now and where you want to be, what space you want to be in. And off of that plan, I don't like to set up just something like, okay, I know what they need. I mean, pretty much off the first consultation, you're going to know what they need. But I like to have them just as involved to help create the plan, because that's also teaching them to think for themselves.
Absolutely.
And to learn how to cope and handle whatever it is they're going through. So we create a plan together. So I let them give the ideas. I ask the questions for them to come up with the answers. And then, if some of it's kind of not making sense, I'll guide them in that direction to come to an answer. But when it comes from them, it's more genuine. And it seems like they respond to that a whole lot better. Okay. And then from there, we just work on whatever it is we have to work on. Sometimes things come up while we're working on these things, and we deal with that. But my goal is to get them to learn to think for themselves, to learn to make their own decisions. And I'm really big on mindfulness, like just, being in the moment. And when you have to focus in on things. So that way, when stress and pressure start to come in, they have a place to go. They have a technique or something that they know how to do to reduce that stress, so they can make the decisions or do what they have to do, whether it's performance or make a life decision, whatever it may be. When it comes to the substance abuse, now that's something that's difficult. We can help on that end, but you really want to make referrals out to, people that are trained to do that, substance abuse counselors, because sometimes they need help, like extra help that we can't provide for that. But on the life coach aspect, we can help with that. Trying to help them, show them alternatives. Like, when you feel like doing this, let's find something else for you to do that gives you that same euphoric feeling, but it's not hurting you or anyone else. So
as far as in our field, we'll just speak it into existence, because I'm gonna get there one day. Would you say that there's a lot of women that you've, like, I guess through internships and...
Not enough. Usually what happens is they get degrees in sports psychology and then they turn into coaches, because it is a really hard field. It is a man's world when it comes to, I mean, that's just sports in general, really, if you think about it. Women are still trying to overcome barriers with getting, the equal resources
everything.
and money and everything else. But there is a need for women, more women, strong women, women that don't back down, women that understand the dynamics of sports, everything else. And it is difficult to maneuver because, like I said, you've got these old coaches that, you know, come in and, oh, only a man will understand this, or how can you work with this football player? And then you have a lot of guys that don't trust women. You know, they have, like, I've dealt with fighters before that just have issues with women. So it is a difficult field to navigate through, but the challenge is what makes it fun.
Yeah.
Because you're breaking barriers, you know, that we can do everything, and we probably have a better understanding of emotions and feelings because we're just naturally made that way.
Yep.
So, yeah, but...
All right.
So I'm curious, is this something that insurance will cover, or can you do it one-to-one?
If you are licensed, insurance will cover it. You just have to get your provider ID, but insurance will cover it. And you would come in as like a licensed, you could either come in as an LPC, like a licensed professional counselor, or you can come in as a psychologist and get licensed, you know, in whatever state you're practicing out of. And insurance does cover it through the mental health factor. The only thing is that if you can go the self-pay route, or you can get a contract with an institution or a program, that's where your money is, because insurances, they cut rates. You know, you'll tell them it's $75 an hour, and they're going to be like, okay, well, we'll pay you $40 an hour, you know, because we have to do all the processing for the claims. I don't like to mess with insurance if I don't have to. But it's something that insurance will cover. And then you can also work with veterans too. Okay. That's another big thing, especially like the ones that have been injured or have physical disabilities. They're looking for sports psychologists to help with that as well, bringing them in.
Okay. So as we are kind of coming to an end of our interview, we do have two kind of closing questions. So first one is, what would you say is the most rewarding part of your career?
Definitely seeing the transition. Like if you know, coming in and you have this person that's struggling with these issues, and then over a period of time, after, you know, so many sessions, you start to see improvement, and then the transition for them to be able to handle things on their own, knowing that they still have a support background, but they're making better choices, or they're not feeling as anxious, or, you know, they've learned how to handle whatever it is they're going through. I think that is like the best part of everything, because you're like, wow, I really, you know, really helped you do that. But then it's more of a, like, you're proud of that person. You, of course, you always have to keep it professional, but one thing is like you grow to really love your clients. I probably have had like one person that I'm just like, I could care less if I ever saw you again. but for the most part, like,
I'm pretty sure you got paid.
Oh,
Your patience.
I'm like, do not have another baby, please. Are you sure you don't want your tubes tied? You get them. You get them, yes.
But for the most part, I love my clients, and you love these people, and you want to see, you know, them succeed. So I think that's probably the best part of the whole job.
All right, and then final question, since that's the best part of your job, do you have, or can you share maybe, like, what would be your favorite inspirational story to share of seeing somebody go from, you know, the caterpillar to the butterfly?
I think definitely the kid that I was telling you about earlier, the one from California.
Okay.
And his situation with his family and his mom, and his brother was killed. And he's getting ready for a pro day, and we're going through a session. And, you know, he had a very upsetting conversation with his mom like 2 days before. And he's just like, I don't think, you know, I've got to get in there and I've got to prove her wrong. And so we start talking about, you know, a little bit about the history with him and his mother. And then as he's talking and as I'm asking these questions, because I'm trying to get him to see a point, it's just like this aha moment. And his face just lit up. And he was like, you know what? This is about me. Like, this is for me. And I was like, yes, like, yes, it is. It is about you. You're doing this for yourself first. Use that as one of your motivational factors, but this is about you, and he's doing very well. He's independent. I think he went and played over in Germany.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think he's going to do another season over there and then he's coming back. But, yes, like it was just amazing to see, like, it just
Click. Yeah.
clicked.
That switch turns on.
Yes. And for them to kind of realize something like, this is about you. You don't have to do this for anybody else but yourself first. And then everybody that is with you or that you love, they reap the benefits after, but it has to be about you first. And so, yes, I was really, really proud of him for that.
Dang. That is amazing.
It is.
All right. As we conclude our episode of Sisters with a Purpose, we do want to thank Miss Carla for coming in and spending some time with us. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And then, Miss Carla, did you want to share your business that you opened here in San Antonio?
So I just started my own practice. It's Kaizen Mind Performance Solutions. Thank you. And right now I got with this marketing guru, so hopefully he's going to get us out there. But other than that, it's kind of just networking, referrals, and that's keeping me pretty busy. And then with program referrals, because like I said, we do evaluations and stuff on how to improve athletic programs. So the website is currently under construction.
Okay.
But I don't know if you guys can put like a link for
Yeah,
information on
yeah.
this. Okay.
Link, your logos, we'll get all
So,
of it.
so I will definitely give you that. So
Okay.
you can put it down and,
Yeah, we'll
you guys
definitely
know of anybody or need
Yeah, we'll
anything.
network
You
for
can
you.
have my child.
Right. Look, let me tell Trey. Look, do they even have this for you? I'm pretty sure they do, but like you said, it's like word of mouth probably, and
It
people
is,
aren't aware
or getting,
of it.
getting in with a. I mean, for something like that, for like an NFL team, you'd have to go through the actual team, and or if you know somebody in there. Like I know a girl, she just got her master's degree in sports psychology, but she knew somebody, and now she's traveling with an NBA team. Like they have her on hand, and she's making like really good money.
I could imagine.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to speak it into existence that somebody's going to come across this video and they're going to be like, we need her.
I commend her though, because we were just talking about that on the last episode. NBA play too many games to be traveling.
They definitely need a
She
whole
doesn't have a
lot.
husb or kids.
Oh, okay. So she's
living
living
the life right now.
My bad. If y'all can hire her remote NFL and NBA.
That's what I'm saying.
But a lot of the stuff you will do remote. I like the personal factor because it's just so much more genuine. A lot of counseling and things have gone to,
Since COVID.
Yeah, the Zoom, and it's okay because it's convenient. But sometimes there's some people that just need that
in
face-to-face.
person. Yeah. No, I agree. All
Yeah.
right, y'all. Well, again, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, thank you, Miss Carla, for taking some time out on this beautiful Saturday. It's been a couple of days, this winter storm, but thank you for sticking with us. And until next time.
All right, y'all. We'll
Bye,
see y'all.
y'all.
Bye.